Finally, the dads on wrestling have come back to Staples Center. Wrong grade one, sorry. Yeah, I gotta walk off.
When you walk up on your own shit, that's where it's failed, dude.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You know, I couldn't resist it. We're standing here next to the great one, Wayne Gretzky.
I don't care what my dad says, the greatest hockey player to ever play the game.
We'll get a little bit of crap from the cameraman on that one.
Gordie Howe.
Eclipsed all his records. Every one of them.
But this is not a hockey show.
It's not, but
It's a wrestling show, and we're still in the shadows of the Staples
61
Center.
NHL records. I'm just throwing that out there.
We are still in the shadows of Staples Center.
Yes, we are.
They are still setting up for the X Games behind us.
It's taken a week and a half to set these damn X Games. They are never going to finish. By the time they finish, it's going to be Summerslam.
Seriously. But
I bet you they'll be setting up next week, too.
Yeah, you know,
I bet
just
you.
maybe. So again, we apologize for the background noise.
We're not apologizing for them, their noises, and being the fingers at it again.
All right, SummerSlam 1996.
I wore this for a reason because he was half of the double main event. The Boiler Room Brawl.
Epic match.
First of its kind. It took 2 days to do this match, and you're thinking, wait a minute, they wrestled for 24 hours? No. As revealed in the McFoley book, Have a Nice Day, available in your bargain bookstores everywhere these days, because it's the first one.
Right.
Paperback, baby. Although I have the hardcover.
So do I.
Baby. They filmed the Boiler Room segment the day before with no commentary, no nothing except brutal noises from both of them falling on shit. And then the following day they resumed, and it was the big thing we'd been expecting since King of the Ring that year. The turn of Paul Bearer. First time Paul Bearer had been heel against The Undertaker.
Yes.
And just an amazing, basically Mick Foley said it best, they were basically just getting started between those two.
Yeah.
Because we went on to Survivor Series, Buried Alive, Hell in a Cell after
and
this.
we don't need to say any more after that.
Exactly.
Seriously.
And then you had the main event, which I still get bugged by this main event of Shawn Michaels and Vader because it took 3 falls for this match to end. Honestly, if they'd have been smart, they'd have booked it where people are shitting on Shawn anyway as champion. Let Vader win the damn belt.
True, he was already WCW champion.
But they didn't count that back then.
This is true, but I'm just saying he had already proven the fact that he could carry the company. Why not put the strap on him, even if it was just a transitional one?
Well, carrying WCW 1993 is a lot different than carrying WWF 1996.
Not much different. Dusty Rhodes said it himself. When the WCW was beating WWF in the ratings, it was between 96 and 98. Who was the champion during 96, 98? Exactly.
Right.
So,
and people blame Shawn for that, which, as we all know, is a big crock of shit, but, you know, whatever.
1997.
Another Undertaker classic with Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yes, which I didn't even have on. Oh, yes, I did.
The WWF Championship match. It's the last
I
match of the
also
night.
had Triple H versus Mankind in the steel cage.
Yes,
where he rips his shirt to reveal the dude love tattoos.
Did the elbow off the second tier of the cage.
Yep. And then Austin versus Owen.
That mess.
Austin versus Owen for the IC title, changing for the 500th time.
In the infamous match where Austin got hurt and led to the end of his career.
Which led to the t-shirt that I had to search for on eBay.
Owen 316.
Owen 316 says I just broke your neck.
Brutal, man. We're trying to talk a little bit louder, Jay, just so you know. It's getting crazy back there. 1998, another Undertaker classic.
My very first SummerSlam. Now we get into stuff that I can actually really get in depth about. I know some of the stuff we've been talking about. I can throw my 2 cents in for most of it. But this is the part now where I can really get in depth. And it's sad that one of the notes that I made, probably one of the worst matches on the card, but it's a note that I had to make, and that is X-Pac versus Jeff Jarrett, hair versus hair. And the reason I made a note of this is because in the history of hair versus hair matches, I think Jeff Jarrett's the only person I can think of that lost a hair versus hair match, and to this day has kept his hair short.
Yep. He had a little bit longer briefly in TNA before.
For a couple of
months. But for the most part, he's kept his hair pretty short. But again, if it was a hair versus hair match, that match should have been bald.
True.
It was
but just the fact that somebody 13 years later is keeping to the hair versus hair match that he lost for another company that he admittedly didn't care to work for,
Right.
that's a testament to the work ethic and the dedication of Jeff Jarrett, who always catches a ton of crap. So that's why I made that as a note.
I'll be interested to see if our boy Pretty Peter Avalon does the same thing, where he keeps his hair short for the next NWA tapings or not.
Triple H and The Rock in the ladder match
Oh my
for
God.
the IC title, where yet again
The IC championship changed hands, but it was more than that. This was the ladder match we've been waiting for 4 years.
this was beauty.
This was a ladder match in every sense of the word. This was what Shawn and Razor couldn't be because of the era it was in.
This is very true, and what the Hardys and Edge and Christian eclipsed a year later.
This is true. And then you had just awesome stuff. You had The Undertaker and Austin for the WWF Championship, another epic match.
Another epic fail of a match, but a note that must be pointed out is Edge and Sable versus Mark Merrow and Jacqueline.
Not so much
Edge's pay-per-view debut.
Not so much a fail because Edge wins his pay-per-view debut. They had to get him in the pay-per-view somewhere.
Look at the people he's in the match.
I understand that, but
The dude that dressed like Little Richard.
for all a fail that Mark Merrow and Sable was, and to be fair, by then he was just a Little Richard. He was really Mark Merrow by then. For all that was, it was still one of the hottest feuds in the company. And they put Edge in the middle of all that, and Sable and Edge get the win with the double team move. It was freaking awesome.
1999.
1999. A little bit of a fail SummerSlam, in my opinion. You had some really corny matches. You had the Unholy Alliance against X-Pac and Kane for the World Tag Team Championship. I know you didn't. Undertaker and Big Show against X-Pac and Kane. Not the greatest match in tag team title history. You had the Kiss My Ass match between your boy The Rock and Billy Gunn.
Didn't even have a note of that.
With that.
Knowing I was going to be wearing The Rock's shirt, I did not even make a note of
With that hideous woman getting her butt kissed by Billy Gunn. That was.
The notes that I did have.
Go for it.
Jeff Jarrett over D'Lo Brown to become only the second ever Eurocontinental champion, in which, again, the curse of the IC title changes hands.
And thanks to Mark Henry, I might add.
Test over Shane in the Lover or Leave Her Greenwich Street fight.
The first real Shane McMahon leap of faith.
This is true. And then, of course, son of a biscuit and gravy.
Party foul.
And then you got Mankind over Austin and Trips for the title.
With Governor
Jesse
Ventura
as the referee.
The
And I'm noticing a pattern here. He was the referee in 88. He was the referee in 99. Any chance of him being referee in 11? Seems like he always manages to pop up as a referee in double numbers, except for 2000. Probably because that would have been a little too close back to back.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens come next week. Whenever this, I don't know this is going on. To be honest, I don't know.
2000.
2000 was
Let's
top to bottom.
Let's see if you can get the notes I've got, because I've got 3 of them.
Yeah, please go for it. Go for it.
I want to see if you can guess.
Okay, TLC.
Yes. The very first ever TLC, gotta have that.
Although, if you really want to think about it, the first TLC match was not called TLC. It was Triangle Ladder
match
at WrestleMania. Down the road, down the 5, and I was there, baby.
This is very true. Technically, that was the first TLC, but it was not called TLC. So therefore, this is the first TLC.
That's right. So for all the crap I get about not being here for SummerSlam 2 years ago, I was at WrestleMania before anybody in this group. So, fuck y'all.
So that's one note I got. Okay. What are my other two?
Triple threat for the title.
Yes.
In which Kurt Angle busted his head.
Yes.
To the point where
botched pedigree through the announce table. Goes backstage on the stretcher, comes back out mid-match.
Which again was all part of the plan, but nobody knew for sure. Nobody knew for real outside of the 3 people in the match and Earl Hebner that Kurt was really fucked up.
This is true. I mean, I believe that him returning and being sent out was part of the plan, but the table collapsing early definitely was not.
Definitely not.
And then, what's the last one I got? Come on, think.
I'm trying to remember the card. It's been so long.
Come on.
Undertaker Kane in that botch finish.
That is not it.
Okay.
Chris Jericho versus Chris Benoit, 2 out of 3 falls.
I didn't say that because I've been well trained the last 4 years.
Walk off. I'm going to talk about 01 without you. You're going to ignore Chris Benoit and succumb to Vince McMahon's decree. I'm going to boot you off for 2001. 2001 had the first WWF versus WCW unification. X-Pac and Tajiri. You had RVD and Jeff Hardy in a ladder match for the hardcore title. Epic match. I know Jeff is Mr. RVD, and I, of course, used to be a Hardy guy, but that gimmick is long dead. You had the Brothers of Destruction over DDP and Canyon in a cage match for both titles. And that's about all I think about 2001. Even the main event to me, which was kind of weak. Come on in now, because I know you got a couple things you want to throw in there, but...
I will agree with you the fact that the two main events were fail. You had Angle over Austin by disqualification after 3 referees got taken out, and the Alliance referee, good old Nick Patrick, calls for the DQ, and then you have Booker T and The Rock for the WCW Championship. Close the show. So you have the WCW Championship close the WWE pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the great one. That's what it all came down to. It was The Rock was the biggest draw at the time, even a bigger draw than Austin.
I would have rather seen the Stanley Cup than I would have seen that match for the WWE Championship.
2002.
Another great
We were
Summerslam.
talking about this match last night and how you were dissing anything of Rey Mysterio's post 1999, and I brought up the
Feud.
Kurt Angle Rey
Yes.
Mysterio feud,
Yes, and
which
kicked off here.
SummerSlam.
Yes.
And I brought up the Matt Hardy Rey Mysterio feud, which culminated in winning the Cruiserweight title from Matt Hardy in Anaheim, which
Right.
I was there at. But that was a whole
The
other
whole,
story.
the whole story, that's
But
right.
you got Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio. You got Edge and Eddie.
Yep.
You got Rob Van Dam and Chris Benoit for the IC title. Again,
The only match I've seen to date where Rob lost his damn ponytail. That's how intense that match was.
Shawn versus Trips in the unsanctioned street fight, and the dawn of what was supposed to be a new era.
The next
Rock
big
and
thing.
Rock.
The era of the next big thing had arrived, or so we thought.
Yep.
Or so we thought.
We were proved wrong a couple years later at WrestleMania, but that's a whole
The
other
Rock gets
set of
booed out of
episodes that we did.
The Rock gets booed out of the Nassau Coliseum. Rock takes it all, much to the delight of the Nassau Coliseum fans.
Yeah.
And then we move into SummerSlam 2003 with Brock.
Which is the last one for this episode.
Yes, sir. Against Kurt
2003,
Angle.
Yes.
Brock and Kurt Angle.
Middle of the card.
Well, but then again, you had the Elimination Chamber that night. That's why.
I know, but I'm just saying, look at how quickly he fell from grace. He went from being the main event against The Rock, becoming the youngest WWE champion in history, to the middle of the card at SummerSlam the next year, to being gone after WrestleMania the year prior. How quickly the mighty fall.
Yep. And then you had the Elimination Chamber match where Triple H dominated. I don't care what anybody says about Goldberg came in and Triple H owned that bald-headed ass right
That's
there,
true.
baby. I loved every
And
minute
I'm
of it.
so glad that he did, because I've kind of been on the fence about Goldberg in the past. You know, I think the time he came and what he tried to do to help save WCW and the story they pushed behind him was epic. Could not help but get behind that. However, trying to duplicate that success in Vince McMahon's WWE, and it just was not going to happen. You've got too many people in that company that you bashed openly, not just on the internet, but on TV talk shows that are now in power. You were not going to have the same success.
The main problem with
and
that
he wants to bitch about how Vince McMahon didn't book him right. I'm sorry. You went on to like freaking Jay Leno or David Letterman and talked shit about Triple H.
And Stone Cold.
You're not going to get pushed, buddy. I'm sorry.
And on top of that, you know, granted, they did botch his push by putting him in the Goldust wig a week later. You know what? Oh well. Tough shit.
And then the only other match I've got from 2003 is the United States title. Eddie, Benoit, Rhino, and Tajiri Fatal 4-Way.
I'm not a fan of 4-ways, 3-ways, whatever matches. That shit was good.
That was very good.
It was very... Alright, we're going to move on. Like I said, I guarantee this is going to be going on next week, dude. It's taking forever to get these X Games set up.
It's the freaking X Games. I mean, it's extreme. It takes forever to set it up, and they just freaking demolish it in like 2 days.
We all know how things extreme take forever to get over. It's the way it is. So, we will see you back here with more SummerSlam reviews.
Next week. See you then.